What's going on, wine lovers? My name is Marco and welcome to your free wine tasting crash course where I'm going to teach you how to taste and analyze wine like a pro. I've spent the past 6 years of my life importing wine, selling wine, drinking wine, teaching people about wine, and even helping to make it. So my goal today is to take everything I've learned about wine and break it down into a simple and easy to follow wine tasting class just for you. So by the end of this class, you'll know how to effortlessly describe what you're seeing, smelling, and tasting, and give wines your own unique personal rating. But most importantly, you'll be able to enjoy and appreciate wine on a level that you never thought was possible. Now, this is an interactive tasting, so go and grab a bottle of wine from home or from the store, bring it back and drink along, because I'll be guiding you step by step through an actual wine tasting, and it's going to be awesome. You can pause or rewind the class at any time, and it works with any type of wine. And as a special treat, everyone who completes the lesson from start to finish and wants to dive deeper into the world of wine can claim a gift worth over $330 at the end of this class. But you have to pay attention to the whole thing, because I'll leave clues about what it is and how to redeem it along the way. All right, that's enough talking. Let's get started. Now, to make the most of this class, here's what you're gonna need. You'll need a bottle of wine, and I'll be drinking this Beaujolais. It's a beautiful Gamay from France. So if you want to drink along, I'll put the wine on screen now if you want to pick this exact wine. But this glass works with any type of wine you want. You'll also need an empty wine glass, your smartphone, and if you want to be really fancy, you'll need a plain white background. Can be a tissue or a tablecloth, it doesn't matter. And we're going to use this to analyze the appearance of the wine. So pause the video now, go and get these things, and press play when you're ready. Okay. So the easiest way to set everything up for this tasting is to essentially just copy the setup on screen. So ideally, you'll watch this class on a computer or a tablet with your wine glass, your smartphone, and a white background on the table in front of you, ready to go. Now, the reason I recommend you watch it on a computer is because we'll be using an awesome wine tasting app that I built specifically for this free class to take notes as we taste our wine. But if you want to watch it on your phone, that's also perfectly fine. You'll just have to switch back and forth between this video and the tasting app when you want to take notes. So pause the video now, set up your tasting station, and press play when you're ready. Okay, now that everything's set up, let's take a look at the wine tasting app. Now, the app is completely optional. You can just use a note-taking app or a notepad, but I highly recommend using the app I've created for 4 reasons. The first reason is that it makes the process of reviewing a wine dead simple. It also automatically generates a professional wine review that you can share and edit. It also lets you track all of the wines you've tasted, and you can discover delicious wines from our community of wine lovers around the world. So if you want to use the app, pause the video now, follow the instructions on the screen, and press play when you're ready. So let's start the review. The first thing we're going to do is click the Add Review button, and we're going to start with the photo of the bottle. You can take a new photo or you can add an existing one, it doesn't really matter. Now, while that's uploading in the background, let's get the boring bit out of the way and add a few simple details about the wine. So we'll start with the winery, and for me, it is PM Chermet. And don't worry if you're not fully sure about some of this stuff, you can always come back and edit it at any point in the review, even after you've published it. But we'll move on to the name of the wine, which is Les Griottes. The vintage is a 2019. It's a red wine. The grape, since it's Beaujolais, is Gamay. And the region is France, obviously. The country is France. The region is Beaujolais. Okay, beautiful region if you know it. All right, now that we've entered some details, we can get to the actual tasting. Now, there are 5 steps to analyzing a wine: pouring, looking, smelling, tasting, and reflecting. And of course, we start with pouring. So let's open the bottle, and you can do it with me now if you haven't already. And we're going to pour what's called a tasting measure. And a tasting measure is anywhere from 80 to 100 mils of wine. So I'll pour my glass now. That is plenty. Now, as you can see, this is a little bit less than you would expect from a typical glass of wine. And the reason we do this when we're analyzing a wine is because, number one, it's easier to analyze the appearance. Number two, it's easier and faster to aerate the wine, which helps release and amplify the aromas of the wine. And it helps warm up the wine faster, which allows you to taste the wine as it begins to relax and release more aromas in your glass. So now that there's some wine in our glass, let's take a look at it. When analyzing the appearance of a wine, there are 3 main traits we want to assess: the clarity of the wine, the color or hue of the wine, and the intensity of that color or hue. So let's start with the first, clarity. There are 5 levels of clarity that we can give a wine. Opaque is at one end of the scale, which means it's like heavily frosted glass, and brilliant is at the other, which means it glitters like a diamond. So hold your wine at a 45-degree angle over your white background and think about the clarity of the wine. Where does this sit on a scale from opaque to brilliant? For me, the wine is really transparent and sediment free, but it's not glittering like a diamond. So I'm going to say this is clear. Then we want to look at the actual color or hue of the wine. If you need a hand, there's a handy color guide in the app that can help you pick out the most suitable color. But no matter what type of wine you're drinking, it will almost always be a variation of one of the following 12 colors: straw, lemon or yellow, gold, amber, copper, salmon, pink, ruby, purple, garnet, and tawny. So again, hold your wine at 45-degree angle over your white background and select the option that seems the most suitable to you. For me, the wine has a beautiful ruby color, so I'm going to select that. And now we want to start thinking about the depth and the intensity of that color. Is the color pale like a diluted glass of cordial, or is it deep and intense like the cordial syrup itself? For me, the intensity in this stunning ruby wine is medium, so that's what I'm going to select. Now, by assessing these 3 traits, the clarity, the hue, and the intensity, we've successfully analyzed the basic appearance of the wine. And in my case, the wine has a clear, medium ruby appearance. Now, being able to analyze the appearance of a wine is great, but actually understanding what it means is where the real fun is. It makes you feel like a bit of a detective, because if you know what to look for, the appearance of a wine can reveal interesting clues about the wine's age, grape varietal, style, and even the philosophy of the winemaker who made it. So if you're interested in learning how to do that, as well as understanding other things like tears, sediment, and tartrate crystals, then pay attention, because at the end of this video, I have a real treat for you. Anyway, by now your mouth is probably salivating and you're dying to take a sip. But before we do, we got to put that schnoz of yours to work. You see, research has proven that smell is responsible for up to 90% of what you perceive to be flavor. This is why everything tastes flavorless and bland when you have a blocked nose. So if you want to enjoy your wine as much as possible and experience all the flavors and aromas that it has to offer, you have to smell it. So let's give the wine a swirl. And if you can't swirl the wine properly, or you don't know how to do it, just place it on the table or whatever the surface is, and pretend you're drawing a bottle cap, something like this big, and just do it in circles. And that's a perfectly good way to swirl the wine. Now, it's good practice to swirl the wine before each sniff, because as we're swirling, the aromas are breaking free from the surface of the wine and gathering at the top of the glass. And this is why it's important to use a tulip-shaped glass instead of an outward flaring funnel-shaped glass. Now, before you vacuum up all the aromas that have gathered at the top of the glass, we need to check if the wine is in good condition. So give it another quick swirl and stick your nose in and ask yourself these two questions. Does your first sniff make you want to smell it again? And does the smell of the wine make you want to drink it? So for me, the answer is a definite yes and a yes. So my wine seems to be clean and in good condition. Now, if you answered no to one or both of these questions, you may have a faulty wine. I'm not going to go into faults in this class, but the most important thing to remember is that you should trust your gut on this one, because some faults can actually become invisible to our nose after just a few sniffs. So let's note down the condition of the nose, which in my case is clean. And now that we've sniffed the wine and confirmed that it's okay, the next thing we want to pay attention to is the intensity of the aromas. So give the wine another swirl and slowly bring it towards your nose. At what distance do you begin to smell the aromas of the wine? How intense are they? Now, when analyzing a wine for its intensity, what you're smelling isn't important. All you need to think about is how easily you can smell it. If you can smell it from chest height, then the aromas are pronounced. But if you can barely smell it, even if your nose is well and truly inside the glass, then the aromas are muted or light. So take a guess as to where your wine sits on this scale and mark it down. For me, the aromas were almost bursting from the glass. So I'll mark down the intensity as medium plus. And then we want to think about how developed these aromas are. Now, this is a little bit tricky to assess, but here's an easy way to think about it. If the aromas were a bunch of different berries or fruits, would they be underripe, almost ripe, perfectly ripe, or overripe and past their best? Think about the aromas as a whole and ask yourself if it seems really young and greenish, just about right, or past its due date, and note down the most appropriate option. For me, the aromas were slightly green, so the aromatic development of this particular wine was young for me. Now that we've processed our first impressions, let's dive a little deeper and move on to the next question. What specific aromas can you smell and identify? Now, at first, you may not recognize anything at all, but it's important to remember that just because you can't smell them yet doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means that you may need a little more practice and smell a bit more wine to be able to pick them up. After a little practice, you'll be able to pick up broad categories like red fruits or flowers. And then a little further down the line, you'll be able to actually identify the specific fruits or flowers that you're smelling. From there, you can start making educated guesses about the variety of the grape you think it is, where in the world it comes from, and how the winemaker went about making the wine itself. And this is an important note that I want to make. Aromas in a wine don't just smell similar to a variety of things like fruits or spices or herbs. They're actually chemically identical to these things. So when you hear a wine expert describing what they smell and taste, they aren't lying or trying to seem intelligent. They're simply listing the aromas and flavors that they're able to identify. And with a little practice and education, you'll be able to identify them as well. So grab your glass and for the next minute or so, swirl and sniff the wine as many times as you like as you're scrolling down this list of aromas and see if any stand out to you. It's important to be honest here, otherwise you'll end up with a review that has, hundreds of aromas, and that kind of defeats the purpose. So if you smell flowers or citrus or red fruits, take a look at the various flowers, citrus, and red fruits on the list and see if any of them click. And if you're picking up on something that isn't listed, you can always add it to your list at the bottom of this section. So I'm going to smell the wine now and see what I'm picking up. So for me, it's pretty typical Beaujolais. I'm thinking straight away of red fruits. So what I'm going to do is scroll down to that and start looking at which specific ones ring a bell or seem the most accurate to me when I'm picking it up. So there's definitely cranberry. I can smell strawberry. Strawberry is really common among these Beaujolais sort of wines. There's definitely raspberry. It also has a bit of a mineral smell, and that's generally a sign of nice terroir. It's a good representation of terroir if there's a bit of minerality. And it's harder to smell. It's easier to taste minerality, but you can smell a little bit of minerality there. Smells good. Now, of course, after smelling the wine, the next step is to taste the wine and analyze it for its texture and characteristics. Now, smelling a wine may give you 90% of the flavor story up front, but true pleasure comes from actually drinking it. Responsibly, of course. The combination of anticipation, euphoria, release, satisfaction, combined with the pleasant, relaxing side effects of alcohol, are part of what makes wine a liquid that has been celebrated and adored for thousands of years. All right, so there are 9 things we're going to look for when we're tasting the wine: sweetness, acidity, tannins, alcohol, body, balance, complexity, intensity, and length. Now, I know it sounds like a lot, but I'm going to go through each of them one sip at a time, explaining everything as simply as I can. And by the end of it, you'll know exactly what each of them are and how to assess them. So let's start with sweetness. So give the wine a swirl and take a decent sip, but don't swallow yet. If you're feeling bold, you can aerate or slurp your wine, which will infuse the wine with a nice dose of oxygen and create a fine mist full of delicious aromas in your mouth. If you don't know how to do it, don't worry about it. Now, move the wine around your mouth and make sure it touches as many taste buds as possible. And think about the sweetness of the wine. How sweet does it taste to you? Is it really sweet like a syrup? Or is it bone dry, which means you can't really detect any sweetness at all? Swallow the wine and select the sweetness level that makes the most sense to you. Now, the vast majority of wines produced these days are dry wines, which means there's very little detectable sugar. And if there is, it's balanced nicely into the wine. So I'm going to take a quick sip now. And the wine I'm currently drinking is dry, along with most Beaujolais, so I'll write that down. Now, as your knowledge grows and you get better and better at tasting and analyzing wine, you'll be able to analyze the entire wine in under a minute. But to help explain everything, we're going to go through them one at a time so you understand it better. So if you end up running out of wine, don't be afraid to top up your glass. All right, now let's take another sip. And this time, I want you to think about the acidity or the tartness of the wine. Is it mouth-watering and tangy like a lemon juice, or is the sourness non-existent like it's a water? There are 5 levels of acidity that we can assign to a wine, from low to high. So swallow the wine and take some time to think about the acidity, then mark it down. Now, I can recall from when I tasted the sweetness that this wine has a medium acidity, so that's what I'm going to note down. Now that we're done with the sweetness and the acidity, the next thing you should pay attention to is how grippy or powdery the wine feels in your mouth and how dry it leaves your palate after you swallow it. This grippy drying effect is caused by tannins, which are special chemicals called phenolic compounds that primarily come from the seeds, skins, and stems of grapes. Now, if you've ever sipped a cold cup of tea and noticed a dry, astringent feeling in your mouth, then you know exactly what tannins feel like. So take a sip. Now, if you're drinking a white wine, there's a 99% chance that you won't notice any tannins at all. So you can select no tannins for this section. But if you're drinking a red wine like a Nebbiolo, you're going to notice a lot of them. Some wines have silky smooth tannins that are almost imperceptible, in which case you would mark the wines as having low-level tannins. And some wines make your mouth feel like it's constantly being patted down with a paper towel, which of course means that you would mark the wine as having a high level of tannins. So think about where your wine sits on this scale of tannins and mark it down. This Beaujolais for me has medium-low tannins. They're present, but they're not overwhelming, and they add a nice texture to the wine. Now we want to think about the alcohol. Alcohol plays a major role in how we feel a wine. Of course, the first and most obvious way it makes us feel is tipsy. But what you might not be aware of is the fact that alcohol also affects the way the wine feels in our mouth. You see, the more alcohol a wine has, the thicker, heavier, and denser it will feel in your mouth. It's also responsible for that burn you feel in your throat as you swallow. Of course, we could just look at the bottle to figure that out, but that's no fun, so we're gonna do it the fun way. Take a sip and think about these two things. How thick and syrupy does the wine feel in your mouth? And what level of burn do you feel when you swallow? Does it feel quite light and airy in your mouth with no significant burn? Or does it feel thick and heavy with quite a hot burning sensation when you swallow? Have a think and select the most appropriate answer. For me, this wine has medium alcohol. Now, as we've just discussed, the higher the alcohol, the fuller and heavier the wine will feel in your mouth. And the same goes for the first thing we assessed, sweetness. The more sugar the wine has, the more syrupy and dense the wine will feel in your mouth. So this leads us nicely into the next part of our lesson, which is assessing the body of a wine. The amount of sugar and alcohol in a wine directly affects the overall weight and thickness of the wine. This combination of weight and viscosity is what we call the body. Another way to think of body is to consider how full or filling the wine feels in your mouth. Light-bodied wines feel light and watery in your mouth and tend to have lower levels of sugar and alcohol. Full-bodied wines feel thicker and heavier in your mouth and tend to have higher levels of alcohol and sugar. So take another sip and think about how it feels. Does it feel light and fresh and delicate on your palate like effervescent water? Or does it feel heavier and thicker and more syrupy like full cream milk? Have a think and rate your wine on a scale from light to full-bodied. For me, this wine has a medium light body. Now we want to think about the flavor intensity of the wine. And we can use the cordial example again. So take a sip, swallow, and gently exhale through your nose. If this wine were a cordial, where would it sit between a weak and diluted glass of cordial and a really intense, strong glass of cordial? Have a think and mark it down. This wine has medium flavor intensity for me. It's very aromatic on the nose, but the palate doesn't quite follow it up. Now that you've analyzed the sweetness, acidity, tannins, alcohol, body, and flavor intensity of your wine, it's time to think about the overall balance of the wine. Are all of these characteristics and flavors in harmony? Or is one of them, for example, the acidity or the tannins, sticking out like a sore thumb? A well-balanced wine is a high-quality wine, and it should taste smooth and integrated in your mouth. So take a sip and pay attention. See how well everything is integrated into the wine as a whole. For me, this wine is good, but it's nothing special, so I'll mark it as balanced. Now, perhaps the easiest characteristic of a wine to analyze is how long the flavor lasts on your palate. So take a sip, let it sit for a bit, and then swallow. If the flavor disappears out of your mouth the moment you swallow the wine, it has a short finish. And if the wine lingers and develops on your palate for up to 30 seconds or more, then the wine has a long finish. So have a think about the wine and mark it down. This wine for me has a medium finish. It's persistent, but it doesn't last that long. Now, if the wine you're drinking has an enjoyable finish and a long one, then it's a good sign that you're drinking a high quality wine. And another hallmark of high quality wine is complexity. Complexity is perhaps the biggest indicator of quality that a wine can express. From earlier in the class, we know that the more layers of aroma you can detect, the more complex the wine is. So take some time to think about how many aromas you were able to detect. Was it a simple wine with only 1 or 2 aromas? Or were you picking up new and diverse aromas every time you stuffed your nose in the glass, including when you swallowed and breathed out your nose? If your wine contains multiple layers of aromas, you may have a complex wine on your hands. There's much much more to complexity than layered aromas. And if you want to be able to understand and explore complexity, then stick with me until the end because I can help you do exactly that. But for now, all you need to know is that complexity is no fluke, and it's part of what separates truly magical wines from supermarket wines. For me, this is not really a complex wine, and it's not trying to be either. It's fresh, fruity, and delicious, which for a Beaujolais is all it needs to be. So that's it for the analysis part. Now it's time to reflect on the wine you've just analyzed and come to your own personal conclusions about it. Because although the aromas, texture, balance, and complexity of a wine are not subjective, how much you actually enjoyed the wine is subjective. This is something that's completely unique to you, as it should be. And the best way to determine what you think of a wine is to give it a score that is personal to you, your taste preferences, and your budget. So let's do exactly that. There are 5 criteria in the wine enjoyment scoring system. The first is the nose. So how enjoyable was the aroma of this wine? Second is the palate. How enjoyable was the flavor, texture, balance, complexity, and finish of this wine? Number 3 is value for money. What is the value for money of this wine? Number 4 is the desire to revisit. How likely are you to buy this wine again in the future? And number 5 is recommendation likelihood. How likely are you to recommend this wine to a friend or colleague? And that's it for the scores. For me, the nose was a 4. It was very enjoyable. There was some red fruits, some cranberry, strawberry, raspberry. The palate was, I would say, about a 3. Nothing crazy, but very enjoyable, very light, not much intensity. Value for money, 4. It's a very cheap wine here in Australia. I think it was about $30. So not the cheapest, but for what you're getting, it's good. Desire to revisit, a 3. There's better Beaujolais that I've tried. And recommendation, I would recommend some other Beaujolais. So this is a 3 for me. I highly recommend scoring wines as often as you can, because the more you use it, the more you'll understand your own preferences when it comes to wine. And the better you'll be at picking wines that delight your palate every single time. Now, this type of wine scoring system cares about value over price and personal enjoyment over technical achievements and complexity, which in my mind makes it a better scoring system. The last part of the review is where you can add some opening or final remarks about the wine. This can be whatever you want, and it'll be added to the start of your review to kick things off. So feel free to get creative. I'm going to write something like incredibly drinkable Beaujolais. And you can make the opening remark 3 words like me, or you can go more in depth and write a full paragraph. It's totally up to you. But now that everything is done, let's click the submit button and bam, the review is complete. If we click the review, we can see that the app has organized everything beautifully and created an incredible review automatically for us. So let's see what my review says. Very drinkable Beaujolais. The 2019 Les Griottes from PM Chermet is a dry, medium-bodied red wine from Beaujolais in France. This Gamay-based wine has a clear, medium ruby appearance and a clean, young nose with medium plus intensity that reveals notes of raspberry, red cherry, strawberry, and minerality. The palate is balanced and uncomplicated with medium flavor intensity, medium acidity, medium alcohol, medium low tannins, and a medium finish. A decent wine in my books, 3.4 out of 5. Now I can copy this and share it to Vivino or Facebook or wherever I want. Of course, once I paste the text, I can also change it or add to it however I like. But this gives me the perfect wine review structure, and I can use it as I please. And if we scroll down, we can see the scores, the color of the wine, the aromas we detected, as well as the characteristics that we analyzed. There's also a few quick links for people if they want to buy the wine from the review, or a comment section for other wine lovers to share their thoughts. Now, you might think that drinking wine in such a formal and structured way would suck the joy out of the entire experience. But I'm here to tell you it's the complete opposite. We did it methodically, slowly and step by step today. But over time, as your skills improve and your wine vocabulary expands, you'll be able to review a wine like that and get more and more excited to try new wines. The other thing I want to point out is that you don't need to formally analyze each and every glass of wine that you drink. You have every right to enjoy a glass of wine without thinking about it or knowing anything about it. And it should never intimidate you. But there is a caveat. And that caveat is that if you're curious about wine, or you're starting to really enjoy it and you can see it becoming a great passion of yours, then the best thing you can do is to learn more about it. Because once you begin to understand the beauty of wine, you'll appreciate every drop that touches your lips and be able to explore the world of wine with confidence for the rest of your life. 6 years ago, I decided that I wanted to get excited instead of nervous when someone handed me the wine list. I wanted to be confident when picking or talking about wine and understand why some wines are better than others. I wanted to learn how it's made, how to pick the perfect wine for any occasion, and how to properly appreciate and analyze what was in my glass so I could determine for myself whether it was a good wine, instead of relying on critics or other people. So I did. And it's not an exaggeration to say that learning more about this delicious liquid was one of the best decisions I've ever made. You see, one of the beautiful things about embarking on a journey into the world of wine is that for many people, myself included, it's a journey that's going to last a lifetime. And what's even more incredible is that the journey itself is more rewarding than any end goal you could come up with. When you learn to truly taste a wine, instead of simply drinking it, every glass of wine you drink can tell you a wonderful, rich story. So if you've ever thought it would be nice to learn more about wine, you essentially have two options. You can do what I did and spend 5 to 6 years trying to figure it out for yourself. You might waste some money on bad bottles or useless classes like I did, but you'll get there eventually and it's 100% worth it. Or you can take a shortcut that hundreds of other curious wine lovers just like you have taken from around the world and enroll in the Wine Expert course. The Wine Expert course is an online course that condenses everything you need to know about wine into short, bite-sized lessons that are easy to remember and hard to forget. It takes all of the confusing wine jargon and complexity that surrounds wine and breaks it down into simple and easy to follow lessons that will help you understand, appreciate, and enjoy wine as much as possible. So rather than me tell you how good the course is, let's take a look at what some recent students have said about the course. So Karina from Hong Kong says, "Wine lists are finally making sense to me after years. Thank you for this fantastic course." Nigel from the UK says, "This was a great course to do during my lockdown and quarantine, and I can honestly say that I learnt something new in each module. Well delivered and structured. I hope to be putting my new knowledge to the test once back out on the street. Thanks, Marco and your team." Martin from Denmark says, "This is a great course. It covers all the basics in a smooth way that is easy to learn and remember. When purchasing the course, I wasn't sure what to expect, but it has been one of the best investments in my wine knowledge so far." Carolyn from Georgia says, "Great course. Some things I've heard about from others but didn't understand in a way I could remember. But you explain so well and make everything easy to understand. Thanks for this wonderful course." And Stephen from Switzerland says, "Many thanks for this great course. I really enjoyed it from the start and it covers everything that matters without the boringness. Well done, un abbraccio." And there are hundreds of other reviews just like this. So for those of you that are interested in learning more about the Wine Expert course, here's a quick look at what's included in the paid course. We currently have over 42 on-demand video lessons and 6 optional assessments that are broken down into 8 modules. The first module is a quick welcome. Then we look at the basics of wine, how wine is made, how to pick and buy wine, how to store wine, how to serve wine, and how to taste it like a pro. Then in the last module, you receive your certificate and we'll send you on your way. Now, as with most things these days, the world of wine is constantly changing, which is why I've made sure the lessons you'll learn in the course are absolutely timeless. So let's dive a little deeper now into each module. The course is laid out strategically in an approachable, chronological order that won't confuse you or overwhelm you. The first module is just a short welcome that explains how the course works, what you'll learn, and how to get the most out of it. Then in module 2, we'll cover the very basics of wine to get you primed for the rest of the course. So we'll look at things like what are the different types of wine, how are they different, what are some of the words you can use to describe their characteristics, which grapes you can use to make wine, and a summary of the most important winemaking regions around the world. After that, in module 3, you'll discover the art, science, and magic of how wine is made. From the climate to the soil to the bottle and just about everything in between, you'll understand how wine is made so well that you'll be tempted to open up your own winery. And if you do, you'll have unlimited wine forever. But if you don't, then like the rest of us, if you want to drink wine, you'll have to buy it. So in module 4, we get a little bit more practical, and I'll show you where to buy wine, how to sniff out bargains wherever you are. Because if you don't know the tricks to buying a wine, then it's a little bit like gambling. You might hit the jackpot every now and then, but chances are you'll be left disappointed and out of pocket most of the time. I'll also give you some tips on selecting wines for special occasions and teach you the fundamentals of pairing wine with food. In module 5, now that you know how to pick and buy wine, I'll give you some insider tips on how to properly store and preserve it, which is vital information if you want to enjoy your wine as much as possible. Then in module 6, once you're ready to take the wine out of storage and drink it, I'll show you exactly how to prepare and serve your wine so it tastes as delicious as it possibly can. From temperature to glass type and everything in between, I'll make sure you're getting the most out of every drop. In module 7, we'll expand and dive deeper into wine tasting until you can analyze a wine with just a few sips. So you'll learn how to effortlessly explain what you're seeing, smelling, and tasting, and why you do or don't enjoy the wine as a whole. You'll be able to form your own opinions about wine, give them your own unique personal rating, identify faults, and uncover what makes a wine truly delicious to you. Then in the last module, module 8, I'll send you on your way and give you a few resources to help you on your journey. You'll also be sent a digital certificate recognizing your new status as a wine expert. But it's not the certificate itself that excites me, it's what it represents. That certificate means you'll no longer have to pass the wine menu to friends when you go out for dinner, or scratch your head in confusion as you're walking through the wine aisles, or feel clueless at a winery or a wine tasting. Instead, you'll have the information, skills, confidence to understand your own palate better, predict which wines you'll like, and make better buying decisions for you and the people around you. So as you can see, the Wine Expert course has been built from the ground up to teach you everything you need to know about wine so you can enjoy it and appreciate it with confidence, all from the comfort of home. There's no fluff or confusing wine jargon, just simple, fun, and easy to follow lessons that will help you become a confident wine expert in just a few hours. So once you complete the course, you'll be able to pick delicious wines with ease, sniff out amazing wine bargains wherever you shop, explore and discover new delicious wines, understand the art, science, and magic of how wine is made, store and serve wine so it tastes delicious every time, and effortlessly explain what you're seeing, smelling, and tasting like an expert. You'll of course also be able to identify faults and give wines your own unique personal ratings, show off to your friends and family if that's what floats your boat, and much, much more. Now, instead of charging you thousands of dollars, the version 1 of the course is just $497. And at that price, it's an incredible deal, because this course is a shortcut that will teach you in just a few hours what it takes others years to learn. But I know not everyone has $500 lying around at the moment. So as a special treat for all the wine lovers watching today, here is a one-time gift worth $338 US. For the next few days, you can click the link below or in the description to enroll in the Wine Expert course for just $159, which is a 68% discount off the original price of $497. So if you enroll today, you'll save over $338 and get lifetime access to the course, which includes 42 ultra high definition whiteboard style video lessons with beautiful imagery. You get 6 optional assessments to test your new knowledge, and you get instant access to new classes the moment they're uploaded. And we have a ton of new lessons in the pipeline. You also get 50% off all future Wine Masterclass courses, no matter the price. We have 24/7 email and course support. You get a unique certificate of completion, and you also get access to our private Facebook group, where wine lovers from around the world share new and exciting wines, organize live or virtual tastings, and help answer each other's questions. So as you can see, you're getting an insane amount of value for just $159. And I'm so confident that you're gonna love the course that I'm willing to offer you a 0 risk, 100% money back guarantee. But here's the catch. This offer will not last. We're releasing version 2 of the course really soon, which means the price of the course is gonna go up by a couple $100 in the next few days or weeks. We're not sure. When it's finished, we'll update it. So since there's literally 0 risk, thanks to our money back guarantee, here's what I recommend you do. Scroll down, click the link below or in the description to enroll and redeem this offer while you still can. All right, wine lovers, that pretty much wraps it up for the free wine tasting class today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I want to thank you for sticking with me until the end. I know I talked a lot about the Wine Expert course, but it's something I'm really proud of and passionate about. So thank you for hearing me out. For those that signed up to the course, I just want to say that you've made an amazing decision, and I can't wait to see how the Wine Expert course has helped you pursue your passion of wine. And for those that tried to join but had some problems with the payment, or maybe they need a few weeks to save up some more cash, you can just shoot me a message to marco@winemasterclass.com and I'll be happy to help out however I can. There's also an FAQ section below that answers some of the most common questions I get. The last thing I want to say is that while I'm incredibly proud of the course, I'm more proud of the wine lovers from all corners of the globe who have already graduated and begun exploring the world of wine with their newfound knowledge and confidence. As my final sign off, I just want to say that if you enjoy drinking wine even just a little bit, or you're curious about it, then investing in the Wine Expert course is the smartest first step you can take. So scroll down this page, click one of the links or buttons to enroll, and get ready to embark on a lifelong journey into the magical world of wine. Thank you for your time, guys. I look forward to seeing you on the inside. Cheers. Cheers.